Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We meet again so soon. Welcome to this Police, Fire and Crime panel meeting. So we'll go on to agenda item 1, so any apologies for absence?
Through you, Chair, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Baker, with Councillor Lunn substituting, and also from Councillors McGee, Pritchard, Gonzalez de Savage and Roberts. Thank you.
And we may see Councillor Randall, from which we believe she may be running late. James, do we have any notifications or requests for the public to speak?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Declarations of interest? Any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Chair's announcements, I've got nothing to raise. So moving to item 5, so the minutes, any comments or amendments? Councillor Maxwell.
Sorry. On page 18, F, page 18, yes. So resolve that. So in F, the panel agrees that for future panel meetings, individual panel members should be able to send in to the panel secretariat in advance any questions they wish to ask on the agenda item. And on G, it says the panel agrees to continue to seek briefing sessions for the panel members with the Chief Constable, Chief Fire Officer, as previously requested from the Police, Fire and Crime Commission. I don't remember we actually agreed to that. Well,
if the wording was to seat it, that's your business. But as we've been pretty clear at the panel, that isn't something we routinely do.
What we do instead is invite you to choose topics that you want to understand a bit more. So we've asked the fire service and the police force to give you briefings on different topics. The last one was on neighbourhood policing, and we're very happy to continue to do that because I think you need to be really well informed.
The reason why I say this is because the actual document doesn't actually come through the post until the last minute. Sometimes it doesn't come through till Monday, so you actually don't actually realise that you must send it in beforehand.
Chair.
Well, you can still raise questions anyway, so sorry, James.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I mean, the intention with F was absolutely not to preclude members asking questions at meetings. Quite the opposite. If someone knew in advance that they definitely wanted to pick up a particular issue, if they could give advance notice of that, then it helps. The idea is that it helps them get a fuller answer at the meeting. So it's an addition to being able to ask questions without notice at the meeting, not a replacement for that. Absolutely not.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I thank Danielle for saying that we can have briefings and on a particular topic, and I think that's really good. But I think what the idea of that item on the agenda, the minutes was to actually meet the two chiefs. It doesn't have to be at one of these panel meetings. It could be at an informal gathering where we're invited to when you're opening something or have some event on. But we haven't yet met the Chief Fire Officer. So, obviously we met the new Chief Constable very recently, but we haven't actually met the Fire Officer.
You did confirm her?
Yeah, it was quite a long while ago.
Okay. We are looking for opportunities, as you say, in a more informal way.
Oh, yeah, I'd be appreciative. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 6, the proposed police...
Oh, sorry, Chair. Formally, can the panel just confirm it agrees the accuracy of the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Maxwell, did you want to say anything else? Or?
No.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
So,
I'd actually like to make a point.
Do you want to put your mic on then?
Councillor Mercer's just said.
Can you put your mic on?
Oh, sorry. I'd like to make one point, is that it would be quite nice to meet the fire chief, because we haven't seen her for a year, I think. That's correct. Thank you.
Chair, the point of the panel is for you to scrutinise me and my interactions with the two chiefs. So, and before we begin, in that regard, can I just say thank you to the panel for confirming the Chief Constable, but more than that, the way that you handled that process. I thought it was a really good process, and I really welcomed the questions that were asked, both of me and my team, but also of the Chief. I really appreciated the way the panel handled that, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's an enthusiasm to see Nikki, the Chief Fire Officer. I think for a briefing or whatever at some point. I mean, of course, she could probably do that and find time. I'm sure in her busy calendar. I saw her only last week at the Holocaust Memorial. But yeah, we're enthusiastic to see her. Thank you. Item 6, the proposed police precept for 2025-2026. So over to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm really delighted to present this report to you. You will understand, because you've had briefings and you've seen the plan, and you've approved the plan, the public safety plan coming from my office. So you know an awful lot of this information already. But just to contextualise what we're doing, and within a national framework as well, we're coming out of a period of turmoil, really, within the police force and within the fire service. And I think we've reached a situation now where we can be really confident about going forward and making all the changes that the public are asking us to make. So bringing back neighbourhood policing, making the police more accessible and more visible to the population. People have said in all different kinds of contexts that is their biggest, most important priority. We know that we want to provide better customer service and improve customer service, and we want to improve response times. I'm also really, really keen that you'll know we've got had a crisis nationally in terms of trust and confidence. We know we've got to build that with our police force and, to a lesser extent, the fire service. What's important about that then is that we get a much better rate of reporting, so that we have a much better understanding of exactly what is going on in the county, what the trends and patterns are, so that we could risk assess and deploy resources appropriately to meet those risks. So what we've done this year with the consultation, we put the consultation around the precept alongside the plan, because we wanted people to understand that the plan was a reflection of what the public has told us they want, and the costs to deliver that plan are embodied in the consultation around the precept. So we didn't know if that was going to be useful to the public, but we rather think it was, looking at the comments that have come back to us during the consultation. So we asked in the consultation for people's views on whether they'd be happy to pay £15 precept. Actually, the government capped it at 14. So more than 50% people said they would be happy to pay for that. And with the fire, the precept we were suggesting was £5, and a greater number of people approved that. So we feel that because we've responded to the public at the big conversation and embodied what they were wanting from both services within the public safety plan. And we've matched the requirements for funding to that. We feel that we're in a really strong position to say that we're listening to the public and we are responding in the best way that we possibly can. So I hope what Vaughan is going to be talking to you about, the questions you've got for him, will be in that spirit, that we're all here to serve the public and respond to the public, aren't we? And we want them to be safe. Now, having said that, there is a difference between people being safe and people feeling safe. I think you would all agree with that. So we are really, really pleased that crime figures, as they are reported, always a caveat, are going down, but we know that isn't always being reflected in how people feel, whether people feel safe or not. So we know we've still got quite a bit of work to do on that level, which is why we're all out and about meeting and greeting and talking to members of the public and trying to establish those really strong partnerships, because good policing and good outcomes for people isn't just about the police, is it? It's about everything else, that, you know, whether the lighting's okay, whether the bushes are being cut back, whether the roads are safe, and all of that kind of stuff. So we're happy we're on the right path with all of that, and we think... So the other thing I'm really pleased about, because obviously I talk to the Home Office quite a lot, and I talk to the other commissioners quite a lot, nationally speaking, even though we are subject to unfair funding, we all know that, don't we? That actually, because of the way finance works through my office, and with enabling services being one team that services the police and the fire service, we are actually in a much better financial position than an awful lot of other forces. So I'm going to hand over to Vaughan. Is that okay?
A brief introduction to the paper from myself. Firstly, thank you to the members of the panel who were able to come along to the pre-briefing that we had the other week. I thought that was really helpful. Hopefully you all felt the same. The report lays out the police budgets and the Commissioner's budgets and the funding around them. It comes off the back of a robust budgeting process that takes into account everything that the Commissioner has just set out regarding the plan and the way forward. Since publishing the papers, we've had confirmation of the final budget settlement from government. In most years, the provisional settlement doesn't vary much from the final settlement. The only thing that has changed is that, you probably will have read about it in the press, is that some additional grant has been given for neighbourhoods, which is most welcome. We're still working through the details of that with the Chief as to how that funding is going to be used. But what I suppose is important to point out is that that doesn't help us with the funding gap and the deficits that we see here, because that will be about additionality. So I just wanted to make that clear. So the result of all of that work, and it is an awful lot of work, and I'm very grateful to my team for putting it all together, is that we've reached a balanced budget position. That does require some savings, and it does require some work from the Chief's team to deliver, and it does require a precept increase as proposed by the Commissioner of £14. So I'd like to welcome any questions on all of this. Thank you.
Councillor Mercer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Congratulations on making a balanced budget, because I can see it must have been quite difficult. We've heard other forces complaining bitterly about theirs, but I am still disappointed. At 36, the Office of Maintenance grants, we have a shortfall of 48 million. It seems to me that's a huge shortfall. Is that right? Sorry, shall I carry on? Yeah. Yes, page 31, if you've got the same pages as me, Office and Maintenance grants, for recruitment of officers. The second paragraph says, this brings the total Office and Maintenance funding to 376 million, a 48 million decrease on the total of 424 in 24-25. So does that mean we're getting 48 million less? It's probably because I've got to turn mine off.
Because there we go. That is nationally across the whole, all police forces on this page. So that's not just relating to us. If we had a £48 million deficit for ourselves, I'd be very worried indeed. But Yeah, the funding has gone down. So you can see, just to explain that, on the previous page, on page 30, the table there at page 30.30, you see the officer maintenance grant was 4.054 million, the second line down, and now is 3.338. So the impact on us is more like 700,000 rather than 48 million.
That's much better, but it do seem to be other things where, for instance, on paragraph 87, we seem to have a shortfall of 2.5 million for pensions, and at 96, a 4.2% cut for Ministry of Justice for victims. Now, it does seem quite strange because I thought we were trying to, look after victims, and if you look compared to the number of officers per 100 population, the population increase that we've had, nothing seems to take account of that. And I know that will perhaps come in a fair funding formula, which hasn't yet come, but we do seem to have been at the sharp end of several of those cutbacks, which is very is concerning. As you explained to us at the budget workshop, we're in a better position than many forces to withstand that. But I still think that, I'm sure Danielle will go and try and get some more money, but it is a little bit worrying.
Yeah, absolutely right. It is worrying. We were really surprised, particularly about the reduction in funding for victims from the Ministry of Justice, 4.2% reduction, which for us adds up to approximately a post or just over one post in a victims services world. But what we have done is made sure we've built in budget and trying to counter that, so we're not reducing the numbers that it's almost trying to force us to do. So we're maintaining service as much as we can, hence the challenge with these budgets.
Could I just come in there, please, Chair? One of the things that I'm really pleased about is that our victim and support service is in-house, which means that we can look after them and protect them. So Ministry of Justice funding wasn't clear, it didn't come through until fairly recently, which normally would have meant for those services they would have had to put people on notice and started the redundancy process. But because they're in-house, we could underwrite those costs and prevent that from happening. So we're unusual. My colleagues, other commissioners across the country, are really quite jealous of the fact that we have got an in-house service, whereas they have to commission out. So if I give you an example, we've got a new duty now under the new stalking laws. So I could phone the head of victim support to say, what are we doing about that? And she's already got in hand the training that is needed for the existing staff to carry out those duties, whereas other commissioners are having to refresh contracts, which is quite an expensive thing to do with their commission service to make sure that people are complying with that duty. So there's lots of benefits to the way we run things, just to reassure you.
Thank you. Andy Frost.
That one? Yeah. My question is around the 1,500 cops and about what work is, that's a nice round figure, but what's the science, I'm assuming there's a lot of science behind that 1,500. And then more importantly for me is the makeup of that 1,500, because if 1,400 of them are chiefs and 100 are Indians, we're not going to get what we want. So I'd just like to know, because obviously when you think 103 million of the budget is police officer salaries, if you're asking for more money to support the police officers, but I want to know that there's been some science behind the number and what you're going to use them for.
Let me deal with that first. There isn't any science, it's pragmatic, because that is the funding that we get. So it's up to the chief how he deploys that resource. And it's not something we're happy about. And it's something we're knocking on government's door about all the time, because it isn't fair. So there's been a correspondence between all the commissioners swapping notes, and I have to about that. And I have to say that conversation started with us because we know we only have 1.9, and now it's 1.98 officers per 1,000 head of population. That is incredibly low. That is incredibly low, and that's what our budget allows us. And it's low by comparison to most other forces. So in lots of other places, they've got 2.2 or 3.4. The Met has got 4.5. You know, that points to me the excellence of how our resources are being distributed, to be honest with you. Because I don't think anybody coming in would immediately note that we've got so few officers compared to other forces, because they actually do an amazingly good job. But it isn't fair, and it is something that we are taking on all the time.
Worth noting the crime figures, though, are going the right way. So, so we're clearly doing something right. Councillor Maxwell.
First of all, I'd like to say about on page 41 and 42. No, sorry about that. Sorry, on page 35, you sent out the questionnaires to the public. Now, what I find interesting is that 1,751 responded. Well, clearly, you know, for the whole of the county, that doesn't seem a lot. And I go round to all the parish meetings and town meetings, which are in my ward. So I have 5 villages and 1 town. And what would be useful is if you were going to send out questionnaires to ask the public how they feel about the police or the fire, it would be better if you sent one to the clerk of each of these areas, because then they would then download it so that other residents could actually see it. And I think maybe next year that's something that needs to be thought about, because responses, like last night when I went to a parish meeting, is that they're not happy. And I think that not being happy about what's happening is something that does need taking up. On the other hand, on Sunday, the police came out to an incident in Islip, which is a village, and they were quite surprised that they were there within 10 minutes. And I have to say that so was I, because I think that they seem to think that they're only running around in cars and not actually going out and doing anything. But I do think that the public, and particularly residents, need to, if there is a questionnaire, they're quite able to fill it in, and they need to know how to send it back. So my next question is, how many, we were talking about police, but how many police have we actually invested in? They want to know particularly, did you say 1,900 police? 1,500, yeah. Has that gone up from last year? And what money is the government actually going to give us to increase that? Or can we afford it? That is the question I would like to ask.
Yeah. Okay, go on. Do you want to? On the consultation, Dorothy, I do think it's a really serious issue, so thank you for raising it. Democracy depends on people being engaged and responding, doesn't it? And I take that really, really seriously. So in terms of the pattern of responses over a number of years, we were quite happy with that response. But I'm not happy with it, because I want many, many more people to be engaged. And I think that is a duty on all of us, you know, that we can all help that process by encouraging people to make those responses. Your point about parish councils, we can certainly look at that. But I want to look at all the different ways that we can help people engage and respond, because the more we know from the public, the better we can meet their needs. So I take that really, really seriously. In terms of the budget for policing. So we did have 1,500 police. We've now got 1,511. We've just received double the grant that we were expecting from government for neighbourhood policing. So we are talking to the chief about how he's going to use that money. We know it's got to be spent on either constables, PCSOs or specials. So we are expecting to see an increase in all of those for our neighbourhoods. Did you want to come
Shall
in?
I come in? Thanks. And just to come in on the science bit, as it were, in terms of the consultation, I think that level of consultation response is very comparable to previous years. We've had a major push on it and seen some real results, and we're getting better at driving that response. I can reassure you that we're using the PLR network, the Parish Liaison Representatives Network, as a really key way into communities. So they have been publicising these links, as have the clerks as well. So everybody's in the loop, and it's just the challenge of bringing people to fill in these questionnaires. As the Commissioner says, democracy is obviously vital, but it's hard to engage people at times. But I'm happy that we're pushing all the levers we have to do that. The other thing I'd say is that by tying up the consultation on the plan with the precept, we've had some really rich feedback from the community. I was going through yesterday a sort of 30-page report of verbatim comments from community members, and it's all in this space. It's more neighbourhood focus, visible officers, linked up partnerships. It's very much speaking to the plan. Even when people are cross, the things they want are actually the things that we're talking about in the plan, and which you've seen in a recent meeting on that plan. So yes, pushing on all fronts, very networked with parishes, but yeah, an ongoing challenge to get people to engage in that democratic conversation. Thanks.
And
Oh yeah. The thing is, I think the problem is that the residents that you need to tackle are the residents who don't have PCs or they don't have any form of networking system. And I think that we have a magazine, but you don't use a magazine for that thing, but we don't have a magazine. It would be quite nice to see a magazine which come out from the police so that people can understand exactly what's happening in the county. Because as it stands at the moment, some people feel left out. That's my view.
Dorothy, you're like me, aren't you? You want people to access all the information. I absolutely agree with you. We do produce a magazine, actually, on a regular basis. Do you not get it? Oh, I will have to think about that one. And we've got Northamptonshire Talking, which is proving to be a really, really good mechanism for keeping people really well informed. But I'll make sure you get the newsletter. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Clearly, our parish councils, they've got a key part to play, and I think us as elected members certainly, we can do our bit as well. So, speakers I've got listed. So, Carolyn and Pauline, and then Wendy.
So thank you. I enjoyed the pre-budget session that we had, and it was really helpful. And the question I have is, you've got your settlement, you've got an annual settlement, you've got a 3-year plan, you've got challenges, your plan's really ambitious and it's great to see. So is there, in your modelling, in your financial modelling, because I know you said you'd really love 3-year settlement, but in your financial modelling, is there enough flex to actually meet this 3-year plan despite the challenges that you've got? Have you got enough built in there? Because we've seen that there's obviously areas where there is deficit and there's going to be some challenge and some real hard decisions to make. But will that be at the cost of the 3-year plan, or have you got enough flexibility within this to actually meet that plan? Thank you.
So the answer is yes. So as part of the medium-term financial planning, we do lots of scenario modelling, looking at different kind of things that could happen, sensitivity analysis, that kind of stuff. The current MTFP is based on maintaining the number of officers that we're providing this year. We maintain them into the future. If the funding is much worse than we're expecting, then we've got options to adjust cohorts of officers to kind of take some out if we absolutely have to. Thankfully, we've not had to do that for a number of years. looking at different ways of doing capital financing, different ways of using reserves. All of these things are as part of our financial modelling. So simply the answer is yes, we have.
So that's great to hear, because I went away, I enjoyed your presentation, I must say, but I went away thinking, there's a 3-year plan here, there's a 1-year settlement. I know what government's like. I mean, it'd be great if they could get a 3-year settlement, because it'd be really good to do that. But my concern was then seeing some of the deficits, whether then it would have an impact on the plan, because you've gone out very publicly on this plan, and I think public expectation with the new chief and everything is quite high now, and you've got an opportunity really to turn around how public perception and actually start to deliver on some things. So it would be a real shame if that didn't happen because of the money. So I'm pleased you've got contingency.
Thank you. Just on that, so remind me, because I don't think everybody was at the briefing. The NI situation has put a pressure on. It's just that's covered off just for 1 year, isn't it? The additional funding from government.
We haven't been told with certainty how many years the funding is for. We assume and we are hopeful that the funding continues. In police, which is obviously the topic we're on, the funding that we've been given for the NI increase covers around 90% of the costs. So relatively good and slightly better than what we were expecting actually compared to last time the NI was changed. Fire, it's a different picture, but we'll get onto that. But a lot of this we really hope will be covered when we get the 3-year settlement and we have certainty. We are told that the neighbourhood policing money will continue for 3 years. Whether or not that will be baselined at the end of it, or whether we're going to have to find some more savings, that's a challenge that we will come to.
Life of challenges. So, Pauline, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Vaughan, Commissioner, and your office, thank you very much for what was a detailed report, which I've read with great interest. Okay, for me, the consultation, it was a shame that both had to go out at the same time, okay, because clearly not the same amount of people did not respond. There was less people responding to the consultation compared to previous year. For me now, with that in mind, I worry that through that consultation, the people that is going to be having that this £14 precept is going to be impacting on the most. I'm worried that their voice is not being heard through this consultation, and I wonder, because when we talk about, okay, currently we have 1,511 police officers, it worries me if there isn't continuous funding that the taxpayers and things like that, in terms of the monies that's being collected, it's going to impact on the people who are most vulnerable, and you will find that there will be a deficit which is big, which is going to be eating on your reserves. So I want to know how you're kind of planning for that. I can see the 3-year plan, but you've said as well, like after that, you're not sure what's going on, and the money, the amount changes each time, which means that it looks like it's going to be resting on local people to kind of finance that uplift. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll let Vaughan come in on that, but I just wanted to say a couple of things. We know from really bad experiences that it's really important to look after our base budget. We know that. So base budgets have got to keep pace with inflation. They've got to keep pace with the need that's been identified at the moment, and it's got to help meet what's in the plan. So that's really, really important. I take your point entirely that the most disadvantaged always pay a percentage higher than everybody else. It's been like that forever and a day, hasn't it? And we look forward to the future where we have fairer funding, because at the moment we're all paying a disproportionate amount for policing through council tax, and it isn't right. But the other side of that is that I am also expecting the poverty figures to go down. So at the moment, can't remember the figures for households, but I know that we have got something like 60,000 children living in poverty in this county, 36,000 in absolute poverty, which has never happened in my lifetime before. I think it's an absolute disgrace for, you know, one of the G7 countries. We're the 7th richest country in the world. We have 36,000 children living in poverty in this county, in absolute poverty, and 25,000 living in relative poverty. It's a national and local scandal. But I think an awful lot of the measures that the government is putting in place is to deal with that situation. So the New Deal for Workers, breakfast clubs, all kinds of measures are going in. So I'm expecting to see an improvement in that level of disadvantage over the next few years, to be honest with you. And if there isn't an improvement, I will be very disappointed. But I take your point absolutely entirely, and we've said it at this panel repeatedly. We are subject to unfair funding, and that has got to change.
Just to come in on this topic of the level of consultation response, we always want more people to reply to consultations for sure, but just to clarify that this is the second highest level of response we've ever had. So I just want to counter a narrative that there's been a low response or a tipping off on this. It's a really high level of response due to the powerful push that the office has put into it through our comms department and Vaughan's offices as well. So there's a good news story in there too.
We've had some good responses on consultations when it's anything to do with dogs, so maybe you mention police dogs. And, so I'll get you on the list. So the next speaker I've got is Councillor Randall. Well, yeah, I suppose it would only be fair, wouldn't it? Please, Vaughan.
Sorry, not too much more to add, really. I suppose as part of the financial modelling that we do, that I mentioned earlier, we include in that different scenarios regarding the increases in council tax that might be necessary in future years. So we always will model what it would look like by not increasing the precept, by increasing it by say 5, 10, whatever kind of pounds. If the funding formula is sorted and we get a fairer grant settlement, then that will reduce the amount that the Commissioner will have to increase council tax by, potentially. And that's what we aspire to. But until we get more information about that, we've just got to kind of carry on with all the different scenarios that we've got. And I suppose in relation to your other point, making sure that we prioritise what's in the plan as our strategic priorities. So if it comes to the point where funding is getting more and more challenging, we know what our priorities are because that's what the plan is, and that's where we'd have to focus the finance and work around that. Hope that helps.
It does help, thank you. And I know we're going to do fire later, so I'll pick up that.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yeah, thank you. I read all of the plan, and actually it met everything that I hear about from my residents. We all know, everybody will say we want, and it's generally PCSOs that they want, because PCSOs are the ones that are the local ones that they know where to go. And I know in Daventry we used to have 6 PCSOs and we went down to 1. And then as a town council, we actually then had to sponsor one. So then the residents felt like they were paying double. So we no longer sponsor one because, we have now seen an increase. But residents do say that they do want more policing. As far as the consultation went, I was sharing that all across my Facebook page. I was encouraging people to respond to it, and I think, as councillors, that's something that we need to be doing. I often see council responses to consultations, and they are way, way, way lower than these figures. And generally consultations aren't well responded to, whatever consultation it is, they are particularly low. Often that's the time it takes you to fill it in, and often the wording's not very clear either, and people often say to me they don't understand the wording, but I felt that the wording on this was, pretty clear. People have said to me they don't mind paying a bit more if they see the results of what they're paying for. So, you know, if we're getting extra police in, crime levels are coming down, you know, and people feel safer, that is the general thing. And so many people say to me that they just do not feel safe walking around anymore, and it is that perception, isn't it? You know, I was talking to somebody the other way walking through a subway, and they said the subway's lit, but when you come out of the subway, you walk into pitch blackness, and that automatically makes them feel really on edge because they don't know what is on the other side. So as long as we see what's in the plan coming forward, then, you know, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to respond, or?
That's a really lovely example, isn't it, of collaborative working, and that's what we all need to do, you know, to share information, to encourage people to make responses, to listen really hard to what the people want. That's a lovely example, actually, of the subway issue, you know, because it doesn't matter if you are safe. If you don't feel safe, that's a big detriment, isn't it? That alters the quality of your life. So we want people to be safe, but we also want them to feel safe. And that kind of scenario, that is about partnership working. That isn't just a policing issue. That is about highways. That is about how we shape our environment. So that, you know, the strength of that partnership working is ever more important, it seems to me.
Yeah, and we have proof of that with Op Fragment over in Southbrook. In Daventry, I think, is a really, really good example. Happy to go through with that with you separately.
I've actually asked Highways to install a new lamppost because it is so dark, and I have got one installed so far, so I'm pushing for another now.
One lamppost at a time. So, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased at your optimism that people will come out of poverty, but all I can see is with this national insurance increase, I mean, the police have actually done fairly well at having it covered by 90%, but unfortunately businesses are closing, unemployment's going up, etc. So I'm, you know, not holding my breath. But we've said about the increased population, we've got a paragraph 42, the graph, it's very stark. The rise. With that comes, you know, they're all new properties, new building. Now, we complain about the amount we have to pay from council tax, but I feel that the developers ought to be paying to Section 106. Now, you mention it at paragraph 116, page 47, that we have an estimated 0.6 million for police. But on the, it's page 61, where it's capital reserves, we've got all zeros for Section 106. So I know that some, you know, it comes in, you know, you agree it and it comes later, but I would have thought over the years we should have some that's come previously. I might be looking at it in the wrong way, but I know Vaughan and I discussed this at the briefing about pushing for, you know, how to get more Section 106. I know other forces have done that, and so I'd be really eager for us to, you know, help with that, with our other hats on, because we, you know, it may not make a huge difference, but every little helps.
Jill, you're absolutely bang on, and it's something that I'm raising nationally, and it's an issue for all commissioners and police forces across the country. It is a deficit in the way that we do business, and it does really, really need addressing. So you're absolutely right. Where we've got huge developments going on in this county, and we don't have commensurate 106 or SIL monies to build the infrastructure that is needed to support those developments. And anything councillors can do to help support that, I'd be really, really grateful for, to be honest with you. And it's something that I've been talking to our chiefs about a lot, because at the moment we only have one dedicated designing out crime officer who receives the planning information. And in my view, that isn't enough, that we need to have the police and the fire service as statutory consultees when there are really big developments. I think it's unacceptable, the level of consultation or going on or not going on at the moment, and we need to improve that. So any help the councillors can give on that would be really, really welcome. Thank you.
I looked into this a while ago, and there was a new paragraph of a duty for the emergency services to be a recipient of Section 106. And in fact, on one particular application, I think I've told you this already, I spotted that you had asked, or the office anyway, possibly prior to you, had asked for contributions. It wasn't in the planning application when I was on planning at that time, but within a week or two I managed to get it in there. Now that development hasn't taken place yet, but I think there's lack of joined up sort of processes somewhere that we need to get to the bottom of to get that to work.
I agree, Jill, and I'm grateful for your offer of help to kind of help bring all that together. So we're doing some work internally to try and make sure we maximise all of that. Just in terms of the question about the figures in our reserves report about the Section 106, I made sure in the body of this report, obviously there's a few paragraphs on page 46 that you've referred to. In the reserves strategy, we've not included it as it's there as a line because we have the reserve to take the money in, but we always assume that we pay the money out as well, because what we don't want to do is to make it look like we've got more reserves than we have. Because more often than not, as soon as the money is able to be drawn down, we can then apply it to an asset and use it within the year. That's why it tends to be, at the end of each year, it should be zero if we can use it as we should.
Thank you. I think on 106s, I think the responses that you send, if you could make them as comprehensive as possible when you're invited to comment, I think because that's going to build that case. As I think we touched on it in the budget meeting, if it's unfair funding, but there is a mechanism through which you can get some more funding. If you evidence that, then I think it strengthens the case without question. I think, and these big developments that we've got and will continue to get, and we've got big numbers in West Northamptonshire and of course in North Northamptonshire as well. So I think that might be an invest to accumulate scheme that you could look at. But I've just looking at my speakers, so I've got Councillor Maxwell next.
Didn't go on.
A couple of points I'd like to bring up. First of all, when you were saying about 60% in poverty, 35% in relative poverty, what's interesting in the north, we've actually made sure that in the school holidays, we actually give a voucher every day to children who are in poverty to get a lunch, whether it be Saturday and Sunday as well, we include that. So we do make real inroads to make sure that these children are fed. But the difficulty is just how far you can actually go. We'd like to do more, and one of the things that we're also doing is extending schools in our area so that they send children. So you're not sending children across the county in a taxi, spending the money on the taxi to send them to school. So that will actually enable us to have more money to put into other causes. But going back to the situation over Section 0106, before we actually divided, before we started paying the police and fire, automatically every planning application did put Section 106 for police and crime, and somehow, as time's gone on, it's been left out. I did bring it up actually to somebody last week, like Jill has, and I think that I think people probably felt that the money you actually got from the public was enough, but it isn't. It clearly isn't enough money, and you do need to have more money from Section 106, but not at the cost, let me tell you, of rebuilding schools. That's the big issue that we have in the north, is rebuilding schools or building new schools in new communities. But I think that's something to be said later. My question is actually, on people who reoffend and the victim support service, do we actually need more money? Because we do have an issue of people reoffending. They think it's A-OK to carry on reoffending because nobody's going to pick up on it. Just how much money could we actually use, and how can we actually go about it to actually stop the reoffending? Last night, a councillor told me that he was running, for example, a boxing club, and in Higham Ferris, it's had to shut down. He had 36 people, and it's had to shut down through lack of funding. And I just wondered whether or not we could this year look at enhancing or helping people where if they run a club like this, that it could be financed from the police, particularly if we're going to try and stop reoffending. And I think, again, I'm going back to the villages where on Saturday these 7 lads thought that they could run around the village, etc. They live in the village, they thought they could run around, but there's nothing there for them in the dark. Sorry.
Going off in all sorts of directions at the moment. I think certainly that I encourage you to speak directly with the Commissioner outside of this meeting concerning funding pots and things, because I do know that the Commissioner's office has funded all sorts of different projects, and I'm sure boxing is definitely one of Danielle's favourite sports. I don't think you wanted to comment briefly on what Councillor Maxwell had to say.
There's going to be funding for prevention work coming through government in a programme called Young Futures. So I think everybody needs to be really mindful of that and think about what kind of partnerships and collaborations can be put together in the localities, so that when that funding comes on stream, people are ready for it. It's going to be really quite important.
Thank you. So, Andy, do you have a question?
Yeah, just last question from me. This is obviously a really detailed report that has taken an awful lot of work to do, and obviously a lot of thought's gone into it. I suppose my only question is, in 12 months' time when we're sitting here and the public have said to us, you charged us £14 each more, what did we see over the last 12 months? What would you like to be able to answer that in 12 months' time?
You received a while ago from Adam Ward the neighbourhood strategy. I would expect that to be fully implemented in 3 years' time. So we're looking at setting up 16 neighbourhood hubs in collaboration with the local authorities. We've already reopened a front desk at Campbell Square. We'll be looking to open front desks in other parts of the county, or if not front desks, other arrangements where people can access the police. And we will also expect trust and confidence in the police to have gone up, because our customer service has improved, our response times have improved, and people feel safer. Not just that they are safer, but they feel safer.
Thank you. Councillor Mercer.
The question was just asked about grants. Now, previous commissioner used to have several different pots. I know one was for community safety, another one perhaps for road safety, etc. Do they still exist? And can, if they do, could we perhaps get some publicity that we could send out to our communities to ask them to put in for bids for that?
They do exist, Jill, and all the information about them is on the website. But if you'd like more detail around that, I'm sure we could send it out to members of the panel.
To add to that, so there are the various different pots that can be bid into. We do as much comms on that as we can, but we always find that it's sometimes quite challenging to get people to put their applications in. So any support that you can give to get the information out about that in conjunction with us would be really, really well received. And just to make you aware, it's mentioned in the report regarding reducing reoffending. We are, as part of this budget, we're increasing the reducing reoffending budget back to the position it was in a couple of years ago, because the budget has been slowly reduced. So there is more money in there to do all of that in offender work and trying to reduce reoffending. So there is budget in there to do all of that good stuff.
Sorry, there was also Safer Streets funding, which the Home Office, we had quite a bit in different areas, which has helped with reducing sort of crime. And I just wondered if there are any more pots coming forward.
We don't believe the Safer Streets funding is going to be continuing from government, but what we have done is made sure that the crime prevention budget within the base is maintained. So there will be opportunities to use that money to continue a lot of that good work. But additional funding, we don't believe we're going to get any more this year.
But then the thing that we're yet to hear about is Young Futures, which the Commissioner's mentioned, which may be the place that things like serious violence funding and sort of Safer Streets funding comes together, because it's a sort of bit of a branding issue, really, that the government mission around youth crime, etc., is called Safer Streets. So there'll be things in that bracket, but exactly how that money's going to come to us isn't yet clear. We need answers quite quickly on that from government there.
I don't know whether you wanted to touch on the immediate justice and your plans for, it might be a good sort of segue into that one, just to mention that.
Immediate justice has been proved to be a really good way of working with young people and turning their lives round. Government funding for that has stopped, but we found the funding within the budget, so we're going to be maintaining that, because we like to have an evidence base for the work that we do, and the evidence shows that it's a really successful programme.
Thank you for that. So I think Pauline we've got, and then Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair. Vaughan, on page 53 of the report, Appendix B, the Chief Constable's operational budget, total...
Pauline, can you speak into the mic?
Thought I was. So Appendix B, the Chief Constable's total budget seems to have gone up quite a bit this year, and I wondered what work had gone in to look at a lower council tax precept rather than the £14 increase.
So
sorry, because there seems to be a big...
Yeah, there is a huge increase, and the vast majority of that is because of the pay award that police officers have received. So all police officers and staff received 4.75% pay increases from September. So that has all been built into this, along with an assumed 2% increase from this year. So that is the vast majority of that increase, along with all of the inflation on buildings and utilities and maintenance and that kind of stuff. As I said before, yes, we model different options for council tax increases, but as you can see when you look at the bottom line, it leaves us very little choice other than to propose what the Commissioner is proposing based on what we need versus what we get.
Okay, thank you. But I also want to come back and say there isn't an expected savings per se that's been said, yet there is a figure that's included in this plan in terms of expected savings. So I just wondered if there could have been a lower precept, is my...
If there was a lower precept, the savings target would need to be considerably higher, and that might mean that we have to reduce police officer numbers or staff numbers, essentially, in very simple terms.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good question, but could I just point out some information you probably don't know, but the doubling of the neighbourhood policing grant is contingent on us having a £14 precept. Right, okay. So that isn't the reason why we set it. We'd already set it, or proposed to set it, before that came through. But that extra 900,000, how much is it?
950.
950,000 is contingent on us having already secured our base budget.
Councillor Maxwell.
I'd like to know, we spoke about this last year actually, but what are we doing about these scooters which are going up and down the road still on pavements? And whilst it may not be...
I think that's
No, hold on. Whilst it may not be a budgetary issue, it is an issue for most people. But what I would like to ask is, I met some residents in Wellingborough, and I was quite sad to hear that they don't feel safe at all. And Wellingborough has actually expanded quite significantly. And if we are going to effectively put police officers, not necessarily all the time on the beat, could we not have them occasionally in Wellingborough so that older people feel safe?
Dorothy, that's an operational issue. And, you know, I'm really passionate about neighbourhood policing and visible policing. And I've recently had a walkabout with the chief in Wellingborough, so he's got a really good understanding of what the requirements are. You know, the retailers and local people stop to talk to him and tell him, so he's got a really good understanding of that. And I have every confidence that he'll be doing what he can to have visible and accessible policing in Wellingborough.
Right, so my follow-up question is that on Sunday I went to Waitrose, and which I often go on this weekend. Anyway, I went to Waitrose to ask the manager exactly how are they coping with theft. And one of the issues that they told me was that people are coming down from Liverpool, all the way down from Liverpool, to come and start thieving from shops down this end of the neck. But I was staggered to find out that how much they're losing per week. And I just wondered, what are we actually doing?
I think this is operational again.
I realise that, yeah. But I'd like to know how much money we're spending on protecting shops.
Well, there's the Retail Crime Initiative, which I would hope you'd know about, amongst other things, but we'll indulge you on this one. I think the Commissioner's clearly compassionate about retail crime, full stop, as am I.
A lot of policing has been refocused recently on high volume crime, of which retail is one of them, and retail crime is opportunistic, it's locality based, it's neighbourhood based, it's also involves serious organised gangs who move through different areas and are very organised and planned about it. We are really fortunate that in this county, because of the operations conducted by the Chief, retail crime has gone down quite substantially, and we're putting in measures into all the retail outlets with an app to help keep them safe and on high alert when anything does go on. But Chair, you've been invited to the next retail roundtable, haven't you? So it's something that we are keeping an eye on, and we are in constant discussion with retailers about.
So just some of the figures, I happen to have some notes here which might be useful. So yes, it's up, but we're still nearly 20% below comparable areas in retail crime. Not that it's making any difference, but and interestingly, in Northampton we're 5.5%, which is interesting. There's some really interesting numbers around, but clearly retail crime is of concern. So we're going to go to Carolyn Cuss, and then I think we're probably pretty much there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is around, it's really good, Commissioner, to hear about your ambitions and the fact that in 3 years' time you'll have the hubs and you'll have this. So my question is, and I said this at the when we had the budget meetings, is could we see some performance figures now? Can we have some opportunity to actually see the performance figures? I know we've had some in the past, and you said, well, actually, I'm not quite sure where these are. So now that we've got all the plan, could we at some point get the performance figures so we could look at the money and the performance figures together and sort of see what's happening, and then we can see for ourselves the impact of some of these initiatives, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. We are quite data rich, you know, because we have this amazing observatory, and in our office we have a data analyst who does all that kind of work, and we do like to be very evidence-based in what we do. So yes, of course.
Thank you. I think so. In sort of conclusion, then, are we overall happy with that precept? Sorry, Councillor Maxwell, go on.
I'd just like to ask, I ask this each year, or I have done, just how many cars are we actually, how many vehicles do we actually have in the county, but also how many accidents we actually have with the vehicles, and how much does it cost us to repair these vehicles over a year?
I don't have that information to hand, Dorothy, but I'll take it back. Okay.
Thank you. So we're in conclusion happy with the proposed precept. Perfect. Okay. So moving on to agenda item 7. So proposed fire precept for 25-26. So over to the Commissioner.
Just very briefly, Chair, because I work nationally with all the other commissioners, there's only 5 commissioners and deputy mayors that have fire as well as police. I have to say, I didn't know before I became a commissioner the value of that. I have to say I do really, really understand it now. I think the fire service has gained enormously by being put with police in lots of different ways, and it has made the service more cost effective through different kinds of efficiencies. So one of them is shared enabling services. Can you imagine? The duplication that was happening before no longer happens, but it's also a much, much, much better service. Fire didn't have any reserves before, now they do. That is extraordinary in my view. I've inherited an estate which is crumbling and needs really serious attention. There's a plan for that. It's a developing plan, it's not finished, but we are just about to submit an application for a new fire station at Malton, which will be an all singing, all dancing fire station. So I think the value of having a fire put in with police has been really proved and is really, really significant. So I'm really pleased to present this budget to you. I think a £5 increase is a very, very modest one. It was the most that we were allowed to put in. But everybody really understands, don't they? The public understands the value of having a well-kitted out, high-performing service, which is what we've got here. There's always improvements that we can make. We do want to improve response times, but the amount of protection and prevention work that is going on through through fire has really, really brought down the incidence of serious fires in the county, and I think as a result of that we're an awful lot safer. One of the big issues for us going forward is the climate emergency and what that means in terms of wildfires and flooding. So future plans are going to be addressing how we need to change what's going on in the fire service to help meet those new demands. Okay.
Thank you. So again, even shorter introduction to this paper, because I won't say some of the same things I've already said for the police one. Since this was published, we've now had the final business rates figures from the local authorities, for which we're grateful. Not too far off what we've estimated in this paper, to be completely honest. They're marginally better, which is a relief, than what we've put in our estimates, but it doesn't make any difference to the proposals here. So police, so fire council tax proposal of £5, which is still, the £5 provision has been given to every fire authority. Therefore, even if we go with £5, we're still one of the lowest precepting fire authorities in the country. So over to you for any questions.
Thank you. Just briefly, so I think it's worth saying the panel, whilst the Commissioner was not aware of the value of shared enabling services, I think the panel has seen that over a number of years. So it's good that you're seeing that too. Flooding, I think, is one you touched on, certainly in the 24th of November, where we got that huge downpour here in Northamptonshire. I think what that really focused a lot of us as elected members and members of the public was you just couldn't get everywhere, or the fire and rescue just couldn't get everywhere, and it's just maybe looking at how we can have a more robust, okay, it takes investment, but so there is the ability to actually be in more than one place or two places. I think we've got 2 pumps, major pumps within West Northamptonshire that could handle it. So I know it's operational, but I think just looking at the bigger picture, things are changing and we need to change with that. So anyway, I think it's Councillor Mercer was the first one on.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy the £5 increase. I think we need to do that to shore the fire service up. But I am rather disappointed by some of the figures of, and not any of your doing, but the government. If we look at page 87, there are 4 paragraphs where it says we have less. So we have only a half of the national insurance being covered. F, reduced pension grant. G, minimum funding guarantee. Previously we had 0.231 million. This year, none. And H, service grant. Last year, 0.034 million. This year, none. I think, considering the following page and where we are in the country as far as the lowest core spending in the country, as it says at paragraph 42, to have all those reductions, it just something's got to give. I know there's only 5 authorities, as Daniel said, that have the joint fire, and I've been banging the drum since day one of this is a great opportunity to share resources and to give extra resources to fire. But the fact that we're so low in the country, I mean, really, I just can't see. We really need to do something. I don't know what we can do, but certainly I'm sure the panel would back you if, to go to government and say this situation needs to change. And I know previously we've done that and they have given us some extra bits and pieces, but we still are the lowest. So we still got to move that. Now, it may take a fairer funding agreement, but we've been waiting for that for years. So maybe if they can help out. I know we bought some new appliances and that's good, and we bought new equipment, and I'm sure that they're doing as much as they possibly can with the funding they've got, and they do a fantastic job. But we need to make sure that our residents are as safe as possible.
Couldn't agree with you more, Jill. It is sad, isn't it, that we're not getting the funding that we need. But when you look at the proportion of funding from government to precept, it's actually a lot higher for fire. But that was a disappointing settlement. And we have written to government, and I will be making representations at a national level to government for increased funding. But what you're seeing here, which is entirely shocking, is the result of years and years and years of disinvestment and in fire. And, it used to be that in the county, other urgencies were placed over fire, and you can understand why. If there was a shortfall in children, a shortfall in adults, other budgets were squeezed, and that is the legacy that we have been left with. So that's why I'm saying to you, for me, it's an absolute miracle that we've got reserves in fire, because we never did have them before, and that gives us a bit of a cushion in case of emergencies. But we do need to be working with government to improve the offer to fire, and we certainly need to be working collaboratively. There's a new duty to collaborate, I have to say. I'm very pleased about that. In terms of looking at the future and future needs, because it's changing, the needs for the demands coming onto our fire and rescue service are changing, and quite dramatically. So we need government to have another look at that. Vaughan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to reiterate that, so the Commissioner is written on that basis, quoting the figures that you see here, because they are really shocking. The Chief Fire Officer, she is on the NFCC, which is the National Fire Group for all the Chief Officers in fire. They are also writing nationally on this very, not obviously about our position, but about all those grant reductions that you're seeing in the report. Believe it or not, quite a few other fire services and authorities around the country have actually come worse off than we have from this. So even though it is a sorry state, we aren't the worst affected, which is at least something we're slightly grateful for. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's disappointing stuff, but it's amazing that we're able to deliver the service that we can, I think.
Danielle, you mentioned about historical. This isn't the last few years. This was way back when it was under the County Council. That's when, we had no reserves at all, and it has been built up over the last few years, which is why we've actually got some at the moment. We had no new appliances. We had no new equipment for the fire service. So we have managed to recoup that situation to some extent over the last 4 years. There's obviously a lot more room to improve, but they do a marvellous job with what they've got. Just to follow up with it, they used to do training with the Cobra system. I mean, I suppose that's more operational, but it used to be an income that they had from doing training, so I don't know if that's something that's been looked into.
We certainly are looking to the future and different income generation schemes, Jill, because obviously we want to have the best fire service that we possibly can, and it does need better resourcing. There's no doubt about that.
But our residents are safe. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
I hear you're going to be building a super-duper fire station over at Moulton, but what happens in the north? Do we just have our little fire stations? And, clearly it is an issue because we have a river that runs through the county, and one of the issues at Bin is the flooding. The flooding is quite significant, actually, in what we're actually doing about it. And my second question is, how many fire officers do we actually have? And how many are we actually training up? Because some fire officers are only part-time. And do we actually continue the training, which did happen last year?
Firefighters have continual training, as you know, because they need to keep their skills very, very sharp. So we have 250 full-time firefighters, you'll be aware, and 250 retained.
Are they being trained, these fire officers? Do they actually go away to be trained? Or
they do continuous training all the time.
Yeah, but the new fire officers, so the new...
You can't be a fire officer without being trained.
No, but the trainees, the people who are recruited to become fire officers, are they still being trained?
Of course.
In addition to that, within the budget proposals, there is a significant increase in the budget for training across the whole of the fire service. So just to assure you, there's a really good training budget that's built into this.
And the fire stations that we have in the north, which normally have one fire engine in the fire station, is that going to be in the future? If we had flooding like they had in Bedfordshire, are we actually going to have the resources to actually cope with this?
in the north, you've got Corby Fire Station, which has got 3 appliances actually, and do the most amazing job, not just for our county, but beyond, looking north as well. The estates programme is an operational matter, so not directly related at this moment to the budget. One of the difficulties we have is that we don't have capital funds, do we? The government and the county didn't leave us or give us any capital funding, so it is going to be an issue going forward, but this budget doesn't cover that.
But looking at it from a bigger picture now,
Can we move on from this? Just
one more point.
Tiniest.
Yeah,
please.
just one more point. Looking at the bigger picture, we've got climate change, and given that we've got climate change, surely the fire service has got to meet the climate change which is now happening.
I think it's been reported to the panel before, Dorothy, that the fire service is undertaking a massive review and they're looking on a risk-based basis. And as soon as that review is complete, we'll share it with you.
I think on that training note, I think we see each and every day with our fire and rescue service, clearly they are well trained and continue to be so with the work they do. So thanks for that. So Carolyn, over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to talk a little bit about generating income, which I'm interested to hear. So the question is, I don't know, Commissioner, if you know, is do the fire and rescue still do the wellbeing and safe checks that they used to do? And is the ICB paying for this? Because actually there's an opportunity for a partnership here, isn't there, to get an investment from the place-based, because integrated care boards are going for that place-based model approach, and the fire service plays a key role in that. Now they've got money. They've got grants. So my suggestion would be, is it something that you might want to explore, that actually that could be an investment into the fire service, because it's a natural saving in the longer term to other service areas if the fire are carrying out the safe and well checks. So I would suggest it might be something, Vaughan, you might want to just get to the place board and ask the question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Definitely worth considering.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's about safe operation, because I can remember years ago campaigning at the county council when the fire service was saying, if you make these cuts, we are going to be operating unsafely. Their cuts went ahead and obviously they were unsafe. So for you now to be saying that we are operating safely is a huge relief for me, and to know that we have got crews that are manning our wagons to the level that they should be is, that is a real reassurance for me. So, if having that 5% increase makes us operate safely, then, I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
I think we've been enjoying that for a number of years, so thank you. Councillor...
The last inspection of fire was the best inspection report we've had for a long time, and it did show that we are safe.
So Pauline.
Thank you, Chair. Budget. Back to the budget in terms of, I agree with the 5%. I agree with it personally, but I'm just talking on behalf of the people of Northamptonshire, I suppose, as an independent body. I agree with the points that Jill raised around page 97 of this report. I think it's page 87 even, right? I've got it all scribbled out because that was going to be my question area, but clearly not now. So based on the fact that there are some funding that we're not going to be getting, and the fact that fire can only hold a certain amount of reserves, and in their reserve budget or savings, I think he said there was about 2% to cover any kind of whatever might happen down the road. In light of the whole thing around climate change and things like this, and yes, the fire service, they do a fantastic job, and we're quite lucky in Northamptonshire. And I hear you talk about the other service areas where we're not as worse off. at the risk of sounding not too restorative, I care about Northamptonshire, okay? And for me, the focus is what should happen if there is a massive issue where the fire service have to dip into their reserves and it goes beyond. We've seen something similar. Yes, this was it Los Angeles, where they had that massive fire. Climate change is changing so much in terms of flooding, fires, this, that, and the other. What would happen if you dipped into your reserves because you've got about 2% and then you have to find that extra 1% if you had to apply for extra grant funding? So where would that money come from if you suddenly didn't have it because of a...
So there are various options. So just to take it from the kind of almost like from the bottom up, there are contingency funds within the fire service that are managed by the chief fire officer. There's also a small contingency that we hold separately for small things like that to happen. Within the fire reserves, what we've managed to build up is a £2 million general fund that is for stuff like that. That is about 6% of the budget. So if there was a major incident and we had to dip into that, we would only have to dip into the equivalent of 1% of our budget before we can apply for more government funding to almost to bail us out. So I think there's enough scope within our reserves to cover those kind of incidents at the moment.
Okay.
But what we would do if we had to dip into that, we'd have to build a programme into our medium-term financial plan to try and build that reserve back up again before another incident occurred, because obviously you can't keep taking out of it. And and as part of our reserve strategy, we don't want to go below the £2 million. So if we have to dip into it, we would put it back in at some point.
So thank you for that. And it makes a bit more sense in understanding that you can only dip into 1% and then before you can apply. But at the same time, again, it goes back to my previous question on the police, where I'm saying if collection rate isn't up to par locally as well, you've got that maybe on top of it. Okay, so...
Yeah, so obviously we rely on the estimates from the unitary authorities as to their collection rates, and we have to work with that. In our medium-term financial plan, we've built in a modest amount of council tax surplus based on what we think based on those estimates. Usually, it works out okay. When you have something like COVID, it all goes a little bit wrong. And then in big stuff like that, when collection rates were affected so badly by the pandemic, there was government funding to help fire and police authorities out. But we think we've been as prudent as we can.
Excellent, that's good, thank you. I just wanted some assurance that at no point you're going to then go back to the public and say, actually, we need to raise it, you know. So, yeah, thank you. It's a clear budget, honestly. I read it and I absolutely understood it for the first time in ages.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so we're all happy with that £5, not 5%? I'm sure you'd like 5%. So the panel happy, in agreement? Absolutely lovely, thank you. So just let James do his notes. So agenda item 8, the Police, Fire and Crime Panel work programme. So over to you, James.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the standard report that's presented to the panel at each meeting to enable it to take an overview of its developing work programme, which is set out in the appendix as normal. There is then a specific extra element covered in this report, which is around the date of the next panel meeting. So the panel is asked to consider the need to reschedule that panel meeting from the 13th of March 2025 due to clashes with other events as set out in the report. So you have the general and the specific element in this case, and I hope the report is fairly self-explanatory, but I'm happy to take any questions otherwise, Chair.
Any questions? No, I think it's all Councillor Mercer?
I'm happy for that meeting to be moved. It would be quite difficult for me to get back from Corby to here in that time, as we have quite a long agenda on that March 13th. And I'm happy to move it to the 6th of March if everyone else is agreeable to that. I have to move something else, but that can be done. The thing I would like to say on the work programme, I would like to suggest to members of the panel, is that we look into this section 106, and if the processes are, in place to help to get those discussions between the authority and the Commissioner's office to make sure that everything is going properly, and we're getting the funding that we should through from all these developments. So I don't know what other people think, but that's a proposal I have.
I think we as far as that's concerned, I'm not sure whether the work programme may not be appropriate. I think we could probably get more pace into it, just going directly to North and West offices, because the one aspect that we have got is the Commissioner's office they've got to be proactive in their as statutory consultees to give beefy consultation responses. If they don't, we don't know what we don't know. They need to, so they need to push through. And obviously, any 106 conditions, they need to be fair and need to be defended. It goes across to legal in both councils to ensure that they are reasonable. So I think I think our focus, is absolutely we should be on 106, but I think we've got to. I think needs to be in consultation with likes of Sarah and the team and the equivalents in the north. I don't know whether you want to just mention anything on that.
Thank you, Chair. What we can do is we can, obviously it'll be working in partnership with our police teams for both North and West. Will be to obviously consider get the feedback in terms of actually how that consultation is undertaken with the police service, and obviously then how that is fed through in terms of Section 106s. So we can probably bring an update back to you at a future meeting just to provide that clarification around what's happening in that regard.
Perfect. So
I was just, if you like, copying Leicestershire panel that had set a panel up and found that there was an extra £2 million that hadn't been passed over. So I doubt that it's that situation here, but it was just, in order, because we've been saying about this for some time, it was just a suggestion of how we could get those discussions going. I'm happy if they're done else in another way, but I just think they need to get going in some form or other.
I think there's without question the drive from this panel and our councils that we can collect from developers a good and proper contribution towards policing, then that absolutely is can happen. So I've got Councillor Maxwell, then John Paul.
Well, going back to the Section 106, if we actually looking at developments and we're asking them to contribute towards this, then it's got, I think it's got to be for a precise thing. It's not just, we'll pop some money into the police or the fire and they can choose what they want to do with it. I think what they want to know is how it's going to be spent. I think that's, it's got to be something that's defined about how they're going to use that money. I think on the other thing, I think that I feel that as a council, we've sort of like, when we were the county council, which is 4 years ago, what happened was that this was, we left less I think it was less obvious that people realise that when they took the council tax away for the fire and the police and made it in theirs, I think they sort of forgot that they still needed money from development, and I think that's where it's sort of been missed out. But I would like to see more evidence. I think what the public want is they want to see, like today, exactly where the money goes to and how it's actually spent. They don't just, it's great having a report, but I think we need to see exactly what happens.
I think, Sarah wants to come in, but on 106s, though, the focus here, I think, is the Commission as a whole to account the Chief Constable, ensuring that their responses as statutory consultee is done. But this is just from James, which we'll go to in a second, but over to Sarah.
So I was just going to say, just to pick up on your point that you were making then, so obviously a Section 106 contribution is designed to make an acceptable, designed to make a planning proposal acceptable and to obviously ensure that it complies with policy, etc. So they, when they are specified and required, they are for specific purposes. So, if you take, for example, I don't know, an area for a player, it will normally specify it's for a player recreation space within the sort of area of that particular development. So again, there would be quite specific details given to how that funding was supposed to be utilised. But we can definitely go away and we can get that information and report that back, as I say, in consultation with place colleagues from both organisations.
I think the problem is that in the past with planning applications, the developers think, right, one swing on a piece of ground. They've got this notion.
We're going off at
yeah, no, but they think they can get away with less.
I think we those experienced in planning, we'll keep the focus on policing. So James has got a suggestion, which you deliver that, and then I won't get it wrong.
Thank you, Chair. No, I mean, the thought occurred as to whether there would be any merit in the panel writing to the chief executives of each of the local authorities, giving a flavour of the points that have been raised. Having said that, you quite rightly made the point that the Commissioner is responsible for holding to account the Chief Constable and the Chief Fire Officer for how effectively their services are engaging in the planning process. The panel has a role for scrutinising and supporting the Commissioner. So formally, any work by the panel on this should be directed at the Commissioner, and clearly, as the monitoring officer has highlighted, there's scope for the panel to be provided with some more information on this, and that may remove the need for the panel to take any further action if it's satisfied with that.
I think probably the one action is for us actually to write to the Commissioner on this specific point, and showing our support for the Chief Constable to have a robust and well, it needs to be robust, otherwise Sarah won't really do anything with it, but a robust approach on policing from a 106 perspective to address some of the challenges that, of course, new developments do. They are a draw. So lovely. So I've got John Paul, then I've got Carolyn, and then I've got Andy.
Just two things. Just going back to the point Councillor Maxwell just made about. Does that help if that comes on? Is that better now? Yeah. Just coming back to the point that Councillor Maxwell has said about money from developers. In Northants, they're doing a whole review anyway of things like the local plan for Northants anyway. So all those kind of things would come into it in regards to what you ask for from developers. I just want to make just a bit of a point here more than anything else. Obviously, I know you want to change the date. I'm sorry to say March 6th I can't do. That's irrespective, I hasten to add. But can you just bear in mind, last time this happened, I was out of the house from 11 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night with hardly any time to eat in between going to meetings. So if that meeting is taking place on the 6th of March, can I suggest you have a cut-off period time of sort of 3:30? Because from here to get to Corby, at that time, it can take over an hour and a half.
Well, it's in the gift of us as the panel members to keep precise and tight questions and me to chair better.
Even though, we have to come to a meeting here at 12:30, I have to leave my house by 11:15 in the morning. So, and it's not always appropriate to sit here stuffing your face with food, certainly not in meetings, but I just want to make that point. It's also making sure that you've got a clear mind and you're up to speed when you're in these meetings, because you do get tired after a period of time. And also, last time, 5th of December, it was dreadful weather driving back as well. I think I got home just gone 11 o'clock at night, which is not unusual, I hasten to add, for a councillor, but, just...
We can bear that, man. I think, I think we can... I like to be more concise, but I do think that use a horse riding term. Sometimes we need to let the horse get the bit between its teeth, and that being the panel, in order to properly question and what have you, the commissioner, etc. said. But we've got that one. So I've got Carolyn, Andy, then Wendy.
Thank you. So just thinking about the work programme, and we're saying our role really is holding the commissioner to account. So I'm saying the performance, that's why I'm saying about the performance data, and I think we ought to write to the commissioner and get that here so that we've got an opportunity, A, to scrutinise it, and then B, to ask questions, because that's the way that we're going to be able to unpack whether the force is actually, and the fire brigade is actually delivering as it should be, by seeing that performance data. And it's remiss at the minute, so you can hear all the words that actually we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's great. Go back to the old CQC days, give me the evidence. And I think as a panel, I'd like to suggest that we write to the commissioner so that we've got a session somewhere in the agenda where we can actually have some detailed discussion about the data.
That does exist in the community safety partnership, so you'll get a lot of data. So you've got that sort of plan on a page and things. But I think, as a panel, I think it will be useful. And I've got this various bits and pieces, which, but I think, it would be useful to see that. So
Chair, it's just Chair, I'm just going back. So when I was a director, I was held to account, which rightly so, and I had key performance indicators, and I had to bring those, and I had to go through them in some detail, and to give an explanation about why I was on target, what were the issues, what was the challenges, what were the actions we take into account. And I think that's a really probably a way to get underneath if this plan is actually working, and to give some assurances to the public we're actually doing that and checking that out.
Absolutely. Sorry, James.
Thank you, Chair. So, members will recall there was the more substantive discussion about the work programme at the last panel meeting, and one of the outcomes of that was that the panel agreed that it wanted to receive a delivery update at each of its ordinary meetings, giving a high-level update across the whole police, fire and crime plan, and a more detailed update on one of the 3 missions. And that would logically be the place where your performance data comes in. And I think the panel's had something of a checkered situation in terms of what performance data it gets. I think a large part of that is a reflection of the big interruption in big businesses as usual that arose over the previous 18 months. But I think what the panel has possibly never done as much as it might is to say what it wanted to receive. The previous commissioner brought various different iterations of performance data in different formats over time. The panel was never particularly forthcoming in saying, well, this is what we want, this is how we want to receive it. As I say, a big part of that was the way business as usual had to be put to one side in recent times. We're hopefully in a more settled situation now. And so that does give the panel scope, as is coming forward, to say what it wants to receive in terms of performance data. It did do at the previous meeting. That can be added to in terms of what's being raised at today's meeting.
Yeah, well, we did have big plans, didn't we? And then we got a huge curveball, or a number of curveballs. So I think, we're getting back on track. So I've got Andy, then Wendy, and then I think everybody's getting hungry.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So I fully understand why you might need to move the 13th of March. I just make it record here, I can't do the 6th of March. But I'm happy to. If because we don't have substitutes. If I can't make a meeting but I can read the papers and just send in any comments, is that acceptable? Yeah. Okay. I'm happy to read the papers, but I physically won't be here on the 6th of March. Just the other thing on the work programme or reporting back to meetings, I'm pleased to see that we're now going to do a detailed finance one after 6 months, which makes sense, because to do it any quicker than that and to do it any more frequently than 6 months probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But we did, as a panel, reject the Commissioner's application for a deputy, but she went ahead and appointed one at 56 grand. Some stage in our work programme, it'd be, I would like to have an update on what are we getting, or not what we're getting, what are our public getting for that 56 grand, i.e. what performance data, what added value has that role added? Because I think we would be wrong not to scrutinise that, bearing in mind we didn't support that appointment.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because as was pointed out during the meeting, that the cost of so lost funding, it was equivalent to one victim support member of staff, which I think the Commissioner referenced back to. So yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable, particularly. James is maybe going to tell us otherwise, but
no, not at all, Chair. That might be something that could be made a specific agenda item. Another option would be at the first panel meeting in 25-26, so early summer, the Commission. Sorry. The Commissioner will be required to produce their annual report on what they've done, what they've achieved over the previous year. So that might also be a logical place to bring that in.
I think I would encourage it sooner rather than later. I think, particularly around this, because clearly we had a Commissioner previously who didn't have a deputy. So it was, I think it was September, wasn't it?
No, it was.
No, sooner than that.
It was earlier than that. It was July.
So the next meeting or the one after that, we should be really getting something, shouldn't we?
I would like to see all this, but I'd like to see it come forward at the next meeting, because it was a little controversial, and we are the Commissioner's critical friend, and so it would be really interesting to hear what has been achieved in that time from the deputy's perspective and the public's perspective. So yeah, lovely. So I've got Wendy, Dorothy, and Jill.
Mine was only really about the date of the next meeting. I was going to suggest, why don't we have it at 11 o'clock, but I can see that's because there's an executive meeting of Northants Council. But it seems like some of our members are going to be missing, so we've got at least 2, haven't we, for that panel meeting. And it is a lot in a day, like from 12:30, and you've got to get back there for like 6 o'clock for your full council. But I suppose there's no other time. Is everybody else going to be at that executive meeting of the North?
Well, can I just say that, like yesterday, so that the previous night we got home at 10 o'clock at night from a meeting, right?
I think just on, I think the. I mean, we're never going to be able to align all diaries. I think that's a fact of life. So I think we just got to, those that can make the meeting will make the meeting, I'm sure. Those that can't clearly won't. So whichever, because if we move one, it's the unintended consequence of everybody's diaries that we're never going to align. But which is why we've moved the meetings previously. But I think.
Can I just ask a point of clarification from Wendy? A bit. That's all I want to know. That's fine. Thank you ever so much.
So I've got Dorothy.
Is it on the 6th?
Yes.
Yes.
What time would it be?
12:30.
Right, okay.
Okay. So then Jill, just finally.
We haven't got an executive that day, so I think a couple of people saying that what we have got is 6 o'clock full council meeting in Corby. So, I mean, because I mean, probably myself, I'm the only one that will attend the executive meeting, but apart from yourself, as you usually come along as well. But I just want, because there are a couple of other people that couldn't make the 6th for other reasons, I didn't know if we perhaps ought to look for a different date, because there's other people not here as well. So I don't know how many people that's going to be difficult for.
Can we take that off?
Yeah, that's what I would suggest, you know, is for James to check round with people if there's only 1 or 2 that can't make it, or a lot more.
So we're going to go over to James, and I think we've just kind of pretty much done this, haven't we? And we find ourselves on the 6th of March still here talking about it if we're not careful.
Okay, so subject to correction by councillors from either the West or the North, my understanding is that the panel is currently due to meet on Thursday the 13th of March at 2 o'clock. That morning there's a meeting of the executive in the North. What's changed since the date was originally set was that there's now a meeting of full council in the West starting at 5. So if the panel chose to go ahead with the meeting as originally planned, which it would have the advantage that panel members will all have it in their diaries, but you would be slotting that in between another commitment in the North in the morning and now another commitment in the West and a full council meeting, so involving all councillors in the evening. If it moved to the afternoon of the 6th of March, then there would be a full council meeting in the North in the evening. There's also a West planning committee, but that's kind of by the by. So it's not a perfect solution moving it to the 6th of March. Clearly not, as we've heard that some panel members won't be able to attend. It just seems it seems better than going with the 13th of March and slotting in between the North's executive in the morning and the West's full council in the evening. I stand to be corrected that it's a better option, and you know, if the 6th didn't work for a majority of panel members, then we would have to look at something else.
We could do it for line in our meetings, couldn't we? Really? Sorry, we could do it for a line in our meetings.
Well,
yeah, but then there are other meetings. It's just never ending, isn't it?
I think we've. Okay, so just back on subject. So we are happy with the latest version of the work programme. Yes. Yes. Perfect.
So for clarity, the next panel meeting is going to be on the 6th of March at 12:30. Is that decided?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I think the chair actually said it might be just worth making sure that other panel members who aren't here can make it, James. So you've already heard from Andy and myself to say we're not available, but that would only leave you with 6 of you. Do you see what I mean? So perhaps it's just checking with the other ones.
So that's the 6th of March.
Yeah.
To make sure that you're happy that there's enough members.
Subject to checking that there will be enough panel members present. Clearly, if there won't be, then it's back to the drawing board.
Thank you, James.
And have you covered the other
Bless him.
item 9 as well?
And then on the work programme for the March meeting, date to be confirmed, the panel wants an item on the outcomes delivered by the Deputy Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner in return for the resources committed to that, and it wants the delivery update to include some performance, a good level of performance data.
Yeah, and I think the report on the deputy, I would like to see a written report, not a verbal one. I don't know what anyone else's thoughts on that. Yeah, a written report as opposed to a verbal delivery. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Good. Are we there?
Can I just ask one question? Is there any opportunity, do you think? I know the police, the fire commissioner is not that happy about it, but I think it'd be quite nice for the panel to meet the fire officer, the commissioner, to speak to. We haven't spoken to her. In fact, I don't think we've spoken to her since she's been appointed.
Well, we've touched on that, and I think the commissioner. We've made it really clear today.
Right, okay.
So let's see what comes of that. But
it's just a touch base to find out what she's in. You know, what problems she actually has, because it's all very well reading the report that they're doing this, but we're not actually getting...
Well, we can ask the commissioner that and can say what problems does the chief fire officer have. But I think the more important one is just to press the flesh and say hello. And you know, there's a lot going on. It was not a great start in just everything going on for Nikki Watson when she came on board. There's a lot going on. I see her out and about, and maybe other people do. But we've made it very clear to the commissioner today. It's not about our operational stuff, it's just a matter of us meeting them, isn't it? I think that's the important thing.
Yes, I understand to that, because the Commissioner did actually say that she would be happy for that to happen in an informal kind of meeting, and I think that is what we normally do. Informally, we would go to like Wellingborough office or something.
That's right to the commissioner
and
just saying about
just meet with the chief.
I don't think you're going to get, I think the Commissioner's adamant, you're not going to get the Chief Fire Officer in this room at this meeting. It's about facilitating the right opportunity.
Yeah.
Informally. So an informal briefing.
Sarah's just going to come in.
I'm just going to, it's important to reflect. Oh, thank you. It's important to reflect on the responsibilities and the remit of this committee, and actually that is not to ask for the chief fire officer to attend. So we are here obviously to liaise directly with the commissioner. So but I actually take on point the points that have been made, and reflecting the comments that the chair has made. You know, the commissioner has said that she would be very happy to, you know, have that in that meeting in an informal fashion. So I think it is right to allow her now the opportunity to go away and facilitate that, rather than, you know, us kind of taking any further steps at this point. Thank you.
Can I just ask one question through this?
We're gobbling up lots of time now, and I want to...
Yeah, just quickly.
Go on.
In the report, I didn't actually see whether or not we got the money back from the previous fire chief when we actually paid him a year where he was...
Well, I think that could be about a compromised agreement, and also over to Sarah.
Yeah, I don't think that would be appropriate for this panel to kind of discuss in an open forum in this way, and that's obviously an employment matter, so not for this.
I was just wondering, because that money was taken out of the budget and paid him.
But it's not for this panel to consider.
Okay, James, are we there? Yes. Perfect. Okay, so just last item 9 then. So over to James again.
Thank you, Chair. So this is proposed meeting dates for 25-26. They follow the standard pattern. They take account of the panel's statutory responsibilities and where deadlines are attached to those. They seek to align with the West and the North's meetings where those are known about as far as possible. Section 6 of the report summarises considerations that have gone into drafting the proposed dates. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are we happy with that? Yep. Okay. Lovely. That's accepted. So last item, urgent business, and there's no urgent business from me. No. Okay. The meeting closed. Thank you for coming. Thanks.